Hey, Miami sports fans. Stop by Caneswear today at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. And check out their awesome merchandise selection of your favorite South Florida sports teams. From the Miami Dolphins, Hurricanes, Heat, Marlins, Florida Panthers, and Inter Miami, they've got it all. Celebrate your favorite team and show off your fandom with their beautiful team starter jackets, killer-looking helmets, team jerseys, cool shirts, and more. And if you are out of town or out of state, no worries. Go to caneswear.com and find everything they have on their site. Select what you want and they will ship your gear to you. Anything over $99 is shipped for free. Don't wait. Stop at Caneswear today.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And all right, as always,
Dolphins number one, baby!
So fins up to all you guys. Thank you for
I just want everybody to remember, we may not always agree on everything Miami Dolphins, but there's one thing we do agree on, is we are all Dolphin fans.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And all right, as always,
Dolphins. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk Fins Talk. I'm your host, Steve Malloy, and joining me tonight is our special guest, Greg. And Greg, could you please say your last name, or I'm going to mess it up?
Miney, as in,
Miney.
my knee. So.
Oh, gotcha. Appreciate it, man.
No problem.
And I appreciate everybody that's in the chat tonight for joining us. As always, please hit that like button, share with your friends, your families, your neighbors. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And we'd appreciate that. It's free. And I also want to make mention before we get started tonight, we may not always agree on everything Miami Dolphins, but there's one thing we do agree on is we are all Dolphins. So thank you, Greg, for joining us tonight on Real Talk Fins Talk. And those of you that are in the chat that are wondering why Rob is not here, he is around. He is in the background. He is producing our show tonight. So appreciate him stepping up and doing that. So Greg, how you been?
Been pretty good. It's been an interesting work week so far. So I'm glad I'm going to be able to talk about something that, I'm passionate about, like the Dolphins, for at least a little while with y'all. So it's been good. Good
stuff. Before we get started, Greg, I wanted to get a little let the folks in the chat know, and even myself, is give us a little bit of your background as far as football goes, and also how long have you been a Miami Dolphins fan?
I'd like to say since I was born. I'm going to be 53 years old today, not today, this year. I've been watching games since the late 70s. Let's put it that way. I remember Woodstock,
right? Yeah.
And Don Strock. I remember the Marino draft and all of those years through the 80s. I've been a season ticket holder now for the Dolphins this is my 13th year.
Oh, wow.
I've been going to games. I was a season ticket holder even when I lived in the Chicago area. So I've moved to Florida for the last 10 years now.
Nice.
Outside of Orlando. So I make the commute regularly. I'm been a big Dolphin fan. As far as my experience with football, I played Division III football. I was an offensive lineman. I played center and linebacker in high school, and then I was an offensive tackle in college. After that, I coached for 2 years at the Division III level. I've been to a number of NFL camps and seminars. I've had personal interaction with a number of NFL and college coaches over the years. I still have some regular communication with high school and college coaches that I worked with all those years ago. So it's been a journey. I played my first year in college was '89, and I basically quit the whole football thing in about '98. Between playing and coaching and things like that. At some point, I had to get a real job. So
right.
making that $1,200 a month wasn't cutting it as a football coach. So I had to do some things, but
gotcha.
Never game's always been in my heart, and I follow it religiously.
Great. And I had you on tonight because number one, I heard you on with Brett Legacy on the Overtime show the other night, and I was really I was shocked. You were talking a lot of stuff that was new to me. You have changed my perspective on the way that I view the NFL from now on. And I really didn't look at it that way. And you said a couple things there, and we'll go over those tonight here on the show. Some of the things you said that just brought light to, and it brought things together for me and put things because I'm not as articulate as you were in explaining what I like to try to explain to folks. And you brought up another perspective that just opened my eyes. And so we'll get into that. So what I'd like to ask you tonight, Greg, is number one, in your view, how has the NFL evolved, say, in the last 10, 15 years, offenses and defenses?
Offensively, a lot of things have changed because of the rules, and the rules have changed in part due to increasing the offense, in sort of a game theory type scenario, right? The expected outcome of plays for a passing play is a lot higher than it is for a running play, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I played high school in the 80s and college in the 80s and early 90s, the offensive mantra, essentially, for the most part, with few exceptions, was you run the ball to set up the pass. Okay. We still lived with the saying that, when you throw the ball, three things happen and two are bad. Okay. So, you ran first and you passed the ball secondly. Okay. What has changed with the rules and with game theory and things like that have been, you pass the ball now to run. Okay. Most NFL teams are throwing the ball 65% of the time.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And the scoring has gone up because of it. And the expected points per play for a pass is significantly higher than it is for a run. So the coaching has basically taken all of this into consideration and developed not necessarily new game plans or new plays or anything, but they've incorporated it into what a lot of coaches now call concepts as opposed to a play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, giving options to plays based on what the defense is doing, and the defense has basically tried to counter that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of in the Marino days in the 80s, okay, right. You couldn't run this type of offense back then because DBs basically just blocked and tackled and essentially grabbed your wide receivers. Okay,
right.
There was no quick passing game per se because you couldn't get off the line of scrimmage that fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Everything had to work downfield. All right,
mm-hmm.
And defenses at that time didn't rely as heavily on the blitz and disguising schemes because knowing that the passes were going to take more time, they relied on their front four, 3 or 4, basically to generate more pass rush because they had more time to create more pass rush. Okay. With the advent of the quick passing game and what's going on now, You can't touch people within 5 yards. You can't
Right.
you can't knock them off the route downfield. That's illegal contact. You have all of these different things going on defensively that have changed how defenses have basically organized around how to stop players on offense. Okay, so what you're doing and what we're seeing now is that defensive strategy, disguising coverages, disguising blitzes, getting quick pressure, okay, by confusing the quarterback who's setting the line, the blocking scheme, and confusing the offensive linemen themselves, allowing unblocked players to basically get at your quarterback as quickly as possible. And that's the only way you're really generating pressure. There was a study done maybe 3 or 4 years ago now that said close to 60 to 70% of pressures in the NFL are scheme related. And you might not see it all the time when you're watching it because somebody's trying to block a defender or, like that or something. But a scheme pressure could be the O-line is blocking somebody other than what they're supposed to be blocking, and a running back is picking up a defensive end. Okay? Instead of going big on the offensive line, a running back is now picking them up. All right? So those are a couple of the different things that are going on today compared to what it was, a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago. The quick passing game has allowed for all of this to take place, and it's changed fundamentally how offenses approach the game and also how defenses attempt to stop the offense. Steve, you there? Hello?
Hey, it looks like he dropped out. So, hello, everyone. It's Rob here from Dolphins Thursday. Yeah, you were sorry, I don't know exactly what you're talking about because I'm watching a baseball game while I'm producing your show. But anyway, when Steve comes back, we get back on topic.
Oh, that's fine.
So anyway, yes, like you, I've been a fan a long time. So we come from about the same boat there. So that's good. But so what are your expectations for this year's team? Like, do you think they can advance to the next level, actually winning some playoff games?
I'm probably a little more skeptical on that happening than most right now. The 2023 team, I think, was really talented at a lot of different positions. And because of the salary cap issues and ramifications and a few things like that have taken place between then and now, we're not going to field as talented as team, I think. Now, that can be kind of, if Tua improves and if the offense improves enough to basically compensate for that, I think there is a possibility. But they lost a lot of talent this year, going into this year.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Little technical difficulties. Were you able to make your finish?
I believe so. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So yeah. So we were talking about the offenses and the defenses and things of that nature. Let me ask you this. Because our quarterback, all quarterbacks are part of the offense. So let me ask you this: is our quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, is the offense predicated for him, or is it just the nature of the NFL evolving in the game today, or is it because of his limitations or even his strengths? Is the way that this offense for the Miami Dolphins is constructed?
It's constructed around Tua's strengths and weaknesses, okay, and also having the cheat code that I call Tyreek Hill. There are things that you can do with Tyreek Hill and with Tua that that can disguise a lot of limitations on the offense. Okay. Mike McDaniel, I believe, has done a very good job of tailoring the offense to a skill set. Doing that, though, he's also kind of highlighted his limitations in a way as well. And the good defenses last year started to exploit some of that, especially toward the end of the season. The teams got better, the defenses got better, and you started to see some of the cracks in the armor, within the offense. Tyreek Hill is so dynamic that Miami's offense can do things that not every other offense can do. Okay. When you consider that like 70% of all NFL playbooks are essentially the same. Okay. Everybody's running basically the same stuff. Okay. It's how do you differentiate yourself? And Tyreek Hill's one of those differentiators. Tua he can throw the ball. All right. He can complete passes. He can, when he sees what the defense is doing and understands it within the concept, and he can get the ball out on time in rhythm to the wide receivers, and Waddle and Hill are a really good dynamic combination. The offense looks really good. When defenses figure out ways to take a couple aspects out of that and force Tua and the offense to throw into areas on the field that they're not as comfortable throwing, you see the limitations. You see the indecision on Tua's part. We saw that quite a bit toward the end of the year. The Cowboys, the Titans, the Bills, Kansas City. All right. They were able to do things to contain Tyreek Hill for the most part that basically affected the entire offense. And that's one of the things that I believe that Tua needs to start doing and getting a little bit better at is understanding without the aid of all the shifts and motions and everything else that's designed to make his job easier. He needs to get better at understanding what he's seeing in front of him and what his options are ahead of time so that he can react quickly enough. Okay.
So when you say options, does that mean that the way that offenses are designed, or what Mike McDaniel specifically has designed for the Miami Dolphins in our offense is, you said there's concepts, right?
Right.
Now, does that mean that Tua's playing the whole field, or is he just looking at one half the field and then one half the field is doing something else?
Tua within the concept needs to be understanding what's going on in the entire field at all. All right. When I say concept, with the limitation in practice time that's imposed in the NFL and basically at all levels now, but with the limitations of practice time, you're only teaching on any given week at the NFL level 10 to 12, maybe 14 different concepts within, in a game plan. Each one of those concepts can then have maybe a dozen or more different options to it.
Right.
Okay. But and that's up to the quarterback. And by options, you can have the same concept called with different personnel, with different alignments, within the same personnel. The X receiver could be Tyreek Hill. The one time you call it, the next time it's Waddle, the next time it's Durham Smythe. Okay. So you're creating all of these internal options within the concept itself, but the concept doesn't really change. But each time you do something like that with a different personnel group, you are basically giving the quarterback the option that they have to understand when they see how the defense reacts to it. Okay, where's my number one read? It might be when Tyreek Hill's out there, he's the number one. But if it's Durham Smythe, he might be number 4. Okay, so you're working different sides of the field. And when I say that Tua needs to be better at understanding what his options are, those are the things that I'm talking about. Okay. You're not a typical game, you're running 65 to 70 plays. Okay. Those 65 to 70 plays are basically only 10 different concepts for the most part, right?
Wow.
You're running the same concept 6-7 times a game, but you're presenting different options each time you do it. And Tua basically automatically throwing to the X because this is the concept that's called no matter who's out there. And I kind of did this with on Friday when I talked about the Chase Claypool play, right?
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
You know, that can't be an option. Okay. That's not your first one or your second one or third one or 10th one. But, you know, those are the types of things that I think Tua needs to get better at. All right. He has to understand what option for this concept is best for this particular scenario that was painted with the defense.
Gotcha. Now, you also mentioned the other night about quarterbacks are game managers.
Yes.
Quarterbacks are game managers. Can you explain that a little bit more? What you meant by that?
Yeah,
and that could be directed towards Tua or any quarterback for that.
Any quarterback. Any quarterback's most important job is to manage the game. What I mean by that is he's the taskmaster. He has to understand everybody's responsibility on the field. He has to understand who is on the field and what their responsibilities are. You know, it's his job to make sure that everybody's doing what they're doing. And it's also his job to understand that what his limitations are within the concept and within the option of the concept.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Chase Claypool play.
Right.
All right. You can't line up, in my opinion, look out there, see the play, the concept that's being run, see that he's running this route. And because it's on a sheet of paper that says this is what, you know, this is who you should throw to in this instance, you can't do that when he's out there. All right. Tyreek Hill and Chase Claypool are miles apart. Okay. When it comes to ability and route running ability and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of managing the game. Understanding that you have a backup left tackle in that's going to be solo blocking their best pass rusher. Okay, because of the line calls and the defense and the scheme has dictated that to you on that particular play, you have to understand that you need to get the ball out quicker, that your first read needs to be correct. Mm-hmm. All right. You can't go necessarily 1-2 improvise because you're not going to get to 2. All right. That's part of managing the entire game. All right. And then the next play, the next time you call it, because the defense does something else, all right, he might have help. Okay. You're back to normal again. All right. But every single play requires some type of game management that a quarterback has to excel in. Okay. To take it to, and I said it on Friday, you know, Patrick Mahomes might be the biggest freak athletic quarterback out there right now, but with arm talent, the ability to speed, the ability to manipulate the pocket and everything else. But he's also the best game manager because it doesn't matter who his receivers are. It doesn't matter who his protection is. It doesn't matter what his running game is. He makes it all work. Mm-hmm. That's because he's just an excellent game manager. And that's part of what quarterbacks have to do in today's game. They have to manage all of that. And all of it is basically on their shoulders. And that's why they get paid the most.
Right. And that's why I always say, and I always get, you know, pushback on this when I talk about, it doesn't matter what quarterback, but we'll use Tua because he's our quarterback. Yeah. When I mention something about Tua, hey, he's the captain of the team. He's the operator out there. He's directing traffic out there. He's the most important guy. He needs to elevate the whole team. And that's the way, from what I'm understanding from what you're saying now, is the quarterback is the most important player on the field nowadays. He has to be able to manage. He has to be able to move people around. He has to know where people are at. And that's all. I'm sorry, but that's lays on the quarterback's shoulders. I mean, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a fundamental it's the fundamental part of playing the position. When you get to the NFL level, they can all make throws. They can all, hit the different parts. We can say that Tua doesn't have a strong enough arm, and he probably doesn't for certain throws. But you know what? He gets the job done. He completes deep passes.
Yeah.
When he's in his zone and when he has things figured out and he's managing the game properly and he's seeing things properly, he's fine. He's a good quarterback. I mean, you don't throw for 4,600 yards in the NFL and not be a bad quarterback, all right? But it's these other little things that he has to do, managing the game, managing the situation within the game. I say this all the time. A first down play on the 40-yard line is a hell of a lot different than a third down play in 2-minute warning, all right, at the end of the game, all right? Mm-hmm. There are levels that you have to get to that one of the cliches that I hate the most is all plays are equal. No, they're not. Okay. The other one is next man up. All right. No, it's not. All right. Chase Claypool is not the same as Tyreek Hill. All right. You can't expect Chase Claypool to be the next man up and do the things that Tyreek Hill does. All right. It's just not, it's not possible. Right. Okay. So the quarterback has to adjust to all of that, all right, and make that work in the frame that it is, because otherwise, you're just going to be, you're one step forward, 2 steps back the entire time.
Right. Yeah. I get you. Let me ask you this. We were talking about how the NFL has evolved as far as offenses and defenses go and all that. Do you think, and we'll get a little bit on I'm going to ask you a question, basically, who do you feel Miami should draft in the first and second round? But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you this. A lot of folks are blaming the offensive line for not just Tua's problems, but our whole offense, the running backs, everything that's happened, and me too, for that matter. I've said, man, we need a better offensive line. Chris Greer doesn't care about the offensive line. He said the offensive line is we're worried more about the offensive line than his is. Well, now I kind of understand why, because of the way that the NFL has evolved. So do you think that that it's going to make a much of a difference if it's going to improve the Miami's offense, running game, and quarterback play if we have an all-pro offensive line or 2 or 3 all-pros across the offensive line? Is that going to make a big difference in today's game, you think?
I don't believe that it does. Offensive line has been severely downgraded with the change in the offensive philosophy and the defensive philosophies, and in the evolution of the game. All right. Mm-hmm. Concepts. When I talk concepts aren't just limited to passing plays. They're also running plays. Mm. And for the most part, because of practice time and the different nature of how offensive line plays, but more importantly, the way defenses approach it, because defenses are very variable on the front 6 or 7 right now. They line up people anywhere. Okay.
Right.
So, back in the day when I played and things like that, you specifically had different blocking patterns for every defensive front that you could see. All right. Mm-hmm. That's what made up that 6-inch playbook. Okay. Where all the different blocking combinations that you had to deal with. Mm-hmm. Well, because the defensive fronts are so variable now, what's the counter to that? Basically run inside and outside zone. Okay. Because the rules, you have basically 2 rules, whether you're covered or whether they're play side covered or you're uncovered play side. And you work in tandem with the person, behind you essentially, to effectively block that. Okay. It's easy to teach. It's easy to prepare for. And with your limited time in practice, it's repetitious. It goes over and over again. You know, offensive lines live on repetition, basically. Right? That's how you get good at what you're doing. So that said, the importance of lining up and basically moving people off the ball like it used to, drive blocking, basically doesn't exist anymore.
Right. And that was my point I wanted to make, is a lot of folks, a lot of Dolphins were made mention of, well, we had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. We had 13 different turnovers in the offensive line. Do you think that had an effect on any of the play? And it, to me, it sounds like what you're saying is it didn't.
I don't believe it does. The difference between the best offensive lines in the NFL and the worst offensive lines when it comes to wins and losses is so minimal. It's almost that it doesn't exist. A few years ago, this is probably late 90s. You know, the Dallas Cowboys had supposedly the best offensive line in football, right?
Right.
All right. They went, I believe, 11-5, 12-4, and lost the first round of the playoffs. Okay. The next year they bring back, and they had the league's leading rusher. That guy goes to Philadelphia in free agency. Well, that was okay. Anybody can run behind the Dallas Cowboy offensive line, right? They had Tony Romo. They had Des Bryant. Okay. The running back leaves. Their backup running back wasn't as good, so the run game basically went downhill. All right. Tony Romo and Des Bryant missed a lot of the season, and they end up going 5-11. All right. With the same offensive line. The offensive line was healthy both seasons. And you can argue that the second season, the 5-11 team got La'el Collins back. All right. And he was an upgrade over who was there before.
Wow. Yeah.
And he went 5-11. Okay. We've seen super teams in the Super Bowl that had the worst running attack in the NFL in the last 10 years. We've seen how the game has basically minimized the effect of O-line. And one of the things that I do all the time when I talk O-line is there's 160 starters in the NFL. Okay, there's 32 teams, 5 offensive linemen per team that are starting. I have a hard time finding 100 good players or 100 players that I don't believe need to be improved. You got 100 players here. You have 60 or so that you want to improve on. That's why like 30 out of the 32 teams is always hunting for offensive line. There's just not enough good players. And the fact that, most offensive lines don't stay healthy during the year. So you're playing a backup, and your next 100 players after that are backups aren't good enough to start anyway. I don't know how you build the wall. Okay. I don't know how you spend the resources to build the wall, knowing that you're one injury away from basically a defense taking advantage of that.
Right.
And, again, Billy Turner. All right. We drafted Billy Turner in the 3rd round. He couldn't play for us, and we had a bad offensive line. Yet a couple of years later, he's starting at left tackle for Aaron Rodgers in our NFC Championship game.
Right.
A couple of years ago, Isaiah Prince, who we drafted, who couldn't get on the field for the Miami Dolphins, started at right tackle for the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
And don't forget Michael Dieter starting center for the Houston Texans now.
Michael Dieter starting center for the Houston Texans. I don't want to say their bodies. I don't want to minimize it that much, but there are so many other positions on offense that are more important, that are more vital to your win and loss than what the O-line is now compared to what it was back in the day. It just doesn't. I can't see spending a whole lot of draft picks or free agent resources on it. You're never going to build that wall. You're never going to get to that point where they're the reason why you're winning or losing.
Gotcha. I want to thank everybody in the chat. I see DB's in there, Chef Jew. I appreciate you, brother, for joining us. Raphael, Scotty's been in there. He's a loyal subscriber. I appreciate you. Daniel's in there. I'm going to try to get everybody, acknowledge everybody, but I appreciate all of you for joining tonight. And don't forget to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, whether you're listening on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, I know if you're on Twitter or any of those other platforms, come over here to YouTube so you can hit that like button for us, man, and subscribe. We'd love you over here, and you can get involved in the chat as well. So let me ask you this too, since we're on the topic of offenses. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody likes to talk about. Let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa, about what are 3 things in your opinion where and I know we've been talking about some of them, but let's put them in some order of what 3 things can he improve on. And let me ask you this. Are those coaches that he's hired, I think there was 3 of them, right? Beck and a couple others. Are those coaches, or can those coaches that he has hired help him out in the areas of improvement that you're going to be talking about?
Well, first, I'll just say yes. All right. I believe that I believe the quarterbacking coaches should help him on a number of things that I believe he's been lacking, essentially since he's been in the league.
Right.
So a couple of things that we talked about: game management. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have to recognize the situation that you're in. You have to recognize the personnel on the field, and you have to basically adjust for it. Okay. That's the first big one. Mm-hmm. The second one, where I think the John Becks of the world and the quarterback coaches can help him with, is understanding pocket movement. And by pocket movement, I mean creating passing lanes with your movement, and understanding where the rush is coming from and where the O-line is taking people. Okay. The O-line is trying to create passing lanes as well, but it's not always going to work. Mm-hmm. And by just moving a half a step or 2 in one direction or another, once you collect the snap, doing that and creating those passing lanes is going to help him immensely. All right. He does it sometimes, and other times he's just static back there. Especially if you watch the All-22 and you see the what I call the O-line camera, essentially you can see that if he just moved a little bit within the pocket, and he has the room to, that he can create that passing lane. Mm-hmm. So I really want him to work on his in pocket movements. I think he could get better there. And then the other thing is McDaniels has, with the shifts and the motions, and Miami runs more shifts and motions than anybody in the league, all right, has made his job at identifying coverages easy for him. I personally, and this might just be me, my foible here, but I would like to see them be a little bit more static on offense and having Tua understand what the coverages are doing without all of that movement.
Yeah, because and I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of these teams like Buffalo and some of the good teams, because they have the personnel, as you mentioned, it's not so much the scheme on defense. Well, it is to a degree, but it's mostly the personnel matchups. At least that's my take. They seem pretty disciplined with all that movement going on. Correct. The teams that seem very disciplined are the ones that play the best against this Miami Dolphins offense.
I don't know if it's affectionately or not, but I call the offense smoke and mirrors. Okay. It's like a magician. All right. Hey, watch what this hand's doing and don't pay attention to what's over here. Right. So they want you, they want your eyes to move. They want you to follow all the shifts and motions and things like that, when basically they're doing something on the other side that they hope that you don't see. Right. Gotcha. In the good defenses, the well-coached defenses don't fall for it. and it makes things harder. And that's one of the reasons why I say don't get caught up in all that motion. Be better at reading what's going on, what the defense is doing without all of that help. The other thing that does is in the 2-minute drill, when you can't run the motions and the shifts because it takes up too much time, it'll make the offense better in that portion of the game. All right. It's part of the game management again. One of the failings at the end of last year, again, playing good games in the NFL usually go to the last 2 minutes. You either have to kill the game or you got to score points in the last 2 minutes to win potentially, right? In the games where we had to have a 2-minute drill, Buffalo, Tennessee, we did it. It ended up bad. And one of the reasons why I think it did is because he couldn't rely on all of the movements. All right. The games, people point out that he did it in the Charger game. He did it in the Dallas game. All right. Those were 4-minute offenses. Those were not 2-minute offenses. You were able to run the entire offense in that time to get the job done. But when you get the ball back with 2 minutes less, all right, you need points. All right. You're limited with the number of timeouts. Defense is not letting you getting out of bounds. All right. The clock is going to be running. You need to get better at just lining up and playing football and understanding what's going on.
In your opinion, do you think that's something that our coach Mike McDaniel needs to do this year more of, as opposed to the smoke and mirrors, as you say?
I do believe that, yes. I think we need to cut back on that. I really do. All right. Tua should be to a point now. It's his 3rd year in the system. He should understand what he's saying without the motions and shifts. All right. McDaniel needs to, hey, look, I got Hill and Waddle out here. Get me another weapon, something like that. Let's line up and play football. All right. Let's line up and say, my guys are better than your guys. All right. We don't need to do all of this other ancillary stuff to get them going. All right. We should be able to just line up and play. And again, I think that helps us in the long run, especially in the 2-minute drill and especially at the end of games.
Gotcha.
And I would love to see McDaniel. We're always going to be up there. We're always going to run a high percentage of motions and shifts. That's just what McDaniel's brought up on. That's what he knows. But instead of being the top, let's be 6 or 7. Let's let Tua cook is the way I would say it.
There you go. That's what I think. I don't know. What's your opinion on? Do you think that maybe? And I like McDaniel. I really do. Do you think McDaniel or the organization are holding back Tua to a degree, or is Tua holding back McDaniel's playbook to a degree?
I think it's that way. I think Tua's holding back the playbook a little bit, maybe a lot. The system that McDaniel is implementing can beat any scheme, any way, shape, or form on defense. Offenses beat defenses. All right. And defenses beat players. All right. That's to contain an offense, you have to shut down or contain players. All right. And the easiest way to do that is to shut down or contain the quarterback. All right. If the defense is limiting areas of the field that you want to get to, and you got to go to your secondary positions, let's put it that way, your secondary spots on the field to run your offense, they're winning. Okay. The great quarterbacks basically can go anywhere. All right. The great quarterbacks aren't limited to, I have to throw this ball at this time and things like that. They can recognize and they can adjust in their concept to hit the different parts of the field and make those options. I just think that right now the limitations on the offense are Tua having limitations himself.
Gotcha.
And and it makes it. There is no magic play. There's nothing that McDaniel can call. There's nothing that you don't go into a game and call a play that you haven't practiced. You don't, you have to, you don't call a play that will work against the defense, but your players can't execute. Mm-hmm. All right. That's not the way the game works. You've got to give your players a chance to make the play. And the great quarterbacks have a bigger bucket to draw from, is essentially what's happening.
Yeah, and that's what I brought that up, is because I know a lot of folks, a lot of Dolphin fans have been saying that McDaniel, his play calling is awful. He's given up and abandoning the run and all that. And I've said, well, I don't think it's so much that he's given up on the run or whatnot. I think it's just Tua is limited in his playing. And he can't open that playbook up.
Well, yeah, and I always find it amusing that they gave up on the run. You can't call. So the defense always has the numbers advantage, right? There's 10 blockers on offense and one guy carrying the ball. That means there's one unblocked defender. Okay, if your quarterback's not going to run or block, that means there's now two. Okay. So when you hand the ball off to a running back, you can block everybody you're supposed to, and there's still people who are unblocked that are going to hit that person. And if you're in a short yardage situation, that they're going to be in the box, and they're probably going to get close to the line of scrimmage when you make contact. So if you're running a 3rd down and 2 play and you hand the ball off to Mostert, you hand the ball off to Achane, and they get met in the hole at the line of scrimmage, are they going to run over that linebacker or that DB and fall forward and get 2 yards?
Yeah.
I don't think so. All right.
Yeah.
Mostert's never had that as part of his career, and Achane is a speed back right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we don't know his health either.
Yeah. So what is McDaniel supposed to call? Mm-hmm. Do you want to put Jeff Wilson in, who's maybe your 4th best running back, in a running back group that's not great? All right.
I know some folks would probably say they are pretty good, but
they are. But we could have a whole.
I know
we could probably talk about running backs for a week, as far as I'm concerned. I think that is the major hole on offense right now.
Running back, really?
I do. I honestly do.
Can you give us a little insight real quick, kind of a brief overview of why you would say that?
So I'm of the opinion there are smart people in the NFL. Okay. Mostert has never been a lead running back on any team until he gets to Miami. Okay. He's played for a lot of really good coaches who basically have tried to upgrade from him. Okay. And the team that went to the Super Bowl this past year went to the Super Bowl because they upgraded at running back. All right. Brock Purdy's pretty good.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey's really good. Okay?
Yeah, he is. He is.
So running back is not a running back by committee anymore. You need running backs with certain talents to accomplish certain things to keep drives going. Miami doesn't have that running back right now. There's nobody on the roster that can get a tough yard or two. None. Okay.
How about Brooks? I know we don't have much of a sample size, but
if I seen more of them, maybe. Okay. But again, once you put Brooks into the lineup and he is that short yardage guy, the entire defense and the entire world knows it. Okay.
Another Jazeki.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Yeah. So you need a diversified running back to basically not key the defense as to what your intentions are when they're on the field.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
And if we had that person at running back, a Taylor, a McCaffrey, a Henry, there's another half a dozen more that you could probably talk to throughout the league and say, if we had that person, imagine how many more drives we would have sustained. Imagine how many more options that McDaniel would have had in calling that 3rd down and 2, 3rd down and 3 play.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I don't think people realize that happened in the Super Bowl is Spags basically crowded the line of scrimmage to prevent McCaffrey from going wild. McCaffrey touched the ball 30 times in that game. They only ran 71 plays. He had 22 carries and 8 receptions, all right? And he had 160 total yards or whatever, but he wasn't gaining a whole lot on the ground, all right? But Spags putting everybody in there basically contained the passing game as well, a short passing game, because he was bringing everybody, all right? Kittle had to block. McCaffrey was out there, and Debo and Ayuk, yes, brain fart. Ayuk,
I get them all the time.
Basically couldn't break the man coverage, right? So that entire thing just kind of shut down that offense.
Mm-hmm.
That would be what would happen if Miami had just a short yardage running back who couldn't fall forward for 2 yards.
Right.
And they would come in, the defense would come in, they would prepare for it, and it would shut down the quick passing lanes as well. So you need to have that ability at running back to open things up. Give the defense right now. All right. The reason why Mostert and Achane were basically successful this year is because everybody was scared to death of Hill. Okay?
Yeah.
So they didn't load the box up. There were lanes wide open for them to run through. And my argument would be that 90% of the running backs in the league could have done the exact same thing. Okay. Is what Mostert and everybody else did, because they didn't really break tackles. They didn't really fall forward. They didn't do anything other than run in the space that they had available. Okay.
Right. And they have the speed too to get through.
They have speed and things like that.
Right.
But they didn't, you don't, in my opinion, you don't grade a running back based on speed and the yards that anybody would have got. All right. Or the touchdowns that anybody would have scored. Okay. You grade them on, are they breaking tackles? Are they creating mismatches? After contact, how many more yards are they getting? Okay. After that initial contact, those are the types of things that we need to see more of in this offense. Mm-hmm. And if you think back on the history of the Shanahan offense, and that's basically what we're running, right? They've always had a dynamic playmaker at running back that basically required the defense to take account for, and that opens up the passing game even more. If we had a really, really good running back as a third weapon, there's no telling how far this offense could go.
So you wouldn't be opposed to drafting one?
I would not at all. I don't study players in the draft. I watch college games and things like that. I don't study players. But if there's somebody at 21 that the Dolphins think could really change their running game for the better, absolutely, I'd do it. I'd draft a wide receiver there as well.
That's what I like to see, a wide receiver and maybe go edge in the second round. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, those are the positions that you need to draft high in the draft, in my opinion, is those expensive second contract positions to get you going. Yep. I would, and maybe there's not a running back in round one that should be picked there. That's fine. You don't overdraft the position.
Right.
But I would not, if there was somebody that you felt was a dynamic player at running back, I mean, think about it this way. All right. Mostert had more touches than Hill and Waddle combined last year. Okay. All right. That doesn't even count Achane. All right. Mostert had more touches than Hill and Waddle combined. He's going to touch the ball. That running back's going to touch the ball 220 to 250 times next year. Let's get the best possible person that's going to be touching that ball that many times.
Right. Wow.
And I don't think Mostert's that guy.
Yeah, I don't either. And you can tell he gets a lot of, he takes he can't take a lot of pounding. We saw that he was starting to break down towards the end of the year. Achane, he was breaking down. He's another little guy, although he's beefed up a little bit. He's looking good. I stood right next to Achane, and I'm 5'8", 100. Right now I'm 5'8", about 195, and I was bigger than Achane. I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, I'm not a big dude, but he wasn't big at all. Now this year he might have gained a few pounds, 15, 20 pounds, it looks like. But he's not that back that we need, all around back. You're talking about a back that's, can catch, can come out of the backfield, can pound the rock, on all around back. And we don't have that.
Yeah, we to that 250 touch back needs to be dynamic and needs to be, I don't want to say Christian McCaffrey because there's only one Christian McCaffrey.
Sure.
But he needs to be in that top, let's call it 10 running backs in the NFL. People will say that Mostert is that guy, but he's never been that guy before. And
he's not now at 32.
Yeah, exactly. He's been in the league. What is this? Is the 8th or 9th year now?
Yeah, something like that.
How many teams has he been cut from? How many, things like that? Smart coaches, Shanahan, all right, basically saying we got to move on from this guy because he doesn't give me everything that I want within the offense. All right. I think they catered to him and they made him look a lot better than what he was last year. But again, when you're a defensive coordinator and you're sitting there looking at Miami's skill positions, where's Mostert fall on the list of people you want to stop? 3rd or 4th?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and that's not because the 4th and 5th guys are good either. You know what I mean? I mean, right. Our 3rd wide receiver was basically non-existent this year, and our tight end is not really a threat.
Well, we got what is his name? John O. Smith. Supposedly he's the guy.
Maybe he improves it. I don't know, but you get my meaning, okay?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
In the San Francisco offense, all right, where I think they have 4 legit studs, okay? Christian McCaffrey is still probably number 1.
Yeah.
All right. You got Ayuk, you got Samuel, and you got Kittle. Okay, that's a pick your poison right there. All right, we don't, in my mind, we don't even have that 3rd, and I think that's holding the offense back. I think that's holding McDaniel back, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you might have a point there. You might have a point there for sure. Yeah, man, this has been a great discussion, Greg. I really appreciate you, and we're gonna have to have you back on again sometime soon here. Maybe after the draft. But let me get your 2 picks. Who do you want Miami picking 1 and 2 in the draft this year?
So
you don't have to know the person, just the position. If
so, my first pick. All right, my round 1 pick right now. If I'm Miami, it's either a pass rusher or a cornerback or a safety.
Really, another cornerback.
We need more DBs. All right. I have an issue there. And the pass rush, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a pass rush in waves. All right. In with Phillips and with Chubb, being hurt and things like that, coming off injuries. We don't have Van Ginkel anymore. We don't have that other 3rd or 4th pass rusher. We need to get more pass rush. I've been saying this since the Super Bowl. All right. San Francisco has 1 good pass rush in any of the last 2 drives that Kansas City had. The one at the end of the game and then the one in overtime. Right. If they just generated 1 good pass rush, they'd probably be Super Bowl champs.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, Bosa was not a factor those last 2 drives.
Mm-hmm.
The other pass rusher that they got from Washington
was Chase Young. Is it?
Was it Young or I think it might have been Young. Yeah, I get him confused with the one that went to the Bears. But anyway,
no. I can't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they couldn't generate a pass rush. Okay, and Patrick Mahomes is an assassin. It might not have mattered, but at the end of the game, you need to be able to rotate those guys in and out to generate that pass rush to close the game. And so I would not be opposed to that. We need more corners, cornerbacks.
So safety, cornerback, edge, and wide receiver.
Those are my main targets. Those are my big guys. I would not mind if a linebacker jumped in there. Okay, but it has to be a 3-down linebacker. I don't want a coverage guy.
That's what everybody doesn't understand. The two guys that we got are both situational players. And Walker and the other guy, was it Brooks? No, Barrett. No, Brooks.
Yeah.
One is good at the run. One is good at the pass.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. I understand. He was bargain shopping. I get it. But anyway, Greer, that is. Anyway, we're going to have to shut down, Greg. Again, I appreciate you so much for coming on tonight. I definitely got a new perspective on the way that I view the NFL. You educated me on a few things. You really know how to articulate it, and I don't. I just say what I say, and whatever comes out, but you really do know how to articulate that, and that's why I had you on here. I really appreciate that. So there's hope. There's hope with the Miami Dolphins. I know I'm saying it. Everybody thinks I'm negative. There is hope. I think the quarterback coaches, as you stated, are going to help Tua out in improving on those 3 areas that we talked about. So that's a good thing. And as you said if he can improve on those and we can add another playmaker, this offense is going to be unstoppable.
Exactly. That I truly believe that. I've been called a hater too online and things of that nature, but honestly, this past year was the most fun I've had as a Dolphin fan in a while. They were a fun team to watch.
They were. That I have to admit, man. I was jumping up and down when they were playing.
They were so much fun to watch. It tailed off at the end, and you could see the reasons why. And if we can, if we can get one more player on offense, at running back, in my opinion, if we can get that player, this offense could go to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks again, brother. I really appreciate it, Greg. And I want to thank everybody that joined the chat tonight. I see you all in there. I appreciate you for standing by and listening to us talk about the Miami Dolphins. Well, I don't know if Dolphin Thirsty is ready for me, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Dolphins #1, baby!
Miami Dolphin fan, let me ask you something. You love the Dolphins? Do you think they are the greatest football team? How about the greatest show on surf? If you answered yes to any or all of these questions, then fins up and surfs up to the greatest show on surf.shop today. Celebrate the most explosive offense in the NFL with this awesome exclusive merch. From jackets, hats, shirts, and more, they have it all. Use promo code FINSTALK and save 15% on your order. Show off your fandom. Don't wait. Go to thegreatestshowonsurf.shop today.